Whew, 50 years for me. But what about 2025 for you, Star Trek? Yeah. Enigmatic? No, not really. Today on episode 383 of Trekland Tuesdays Live with me, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek. Coming at you as always here from the heart of Trekland through Portal 47 and Trekland Treks and all of those things. Hey, we're starting off a brand new shiny 2025. You can take a Trekland Trek with me. Check it out at treklandtreks.com or larrynemecek.com. 4 of your favorite location sites that you arrange with my help and that you visit with my concierging. Yes, all of that for another dab here of some sanity, clarity, and the big picture in all things Star Trek, or in a lot of Star Trek anyway, here in the bright, shiny new year of 2025. For a lot of the country, it's a snowpack, or you're digging out of it. Today, we're having high winds and fires up around, a lot of SoCal and from LA and the Basin, Orange County, over to the Inland Empire. And now it's dry tinder with huge wind. I mean, like 100-mile-an-hour gusts. It's insane. And there's power lost, and they're worried about fires already breaking out. And you know what? If you're watching us later on YouTube, welcome to. You can still comment right there below the frame. Keep the conversation going. Hopefully, we're going to push some buttons today, spark a few things, and we'll see what's going on. I've got kind of one of those dual-natured ones, because we had a poll in my newsletter. It's not too late to jump in. In fact, the newsletter has an online page, and you could scroll down and get the poll. The New Year's Eve offer for Portal is gone, by the way. So a couple of people jumped and grabbed it, but the poll is still good. It was still good until now. This poll's question is, what are you looking forward to in 2025 from Star Trek? What are you most looking forward to? Now, I'm going to get to those poll results in a second, but I've got a secondary topic today that I wanted to hit. I realized something about myself just this last weekend. I was a little sad because I feel like I was a little slow on the uptake. No, for some reason, was thinking about, as I mentioned last week, talking about the old year and the new year. I go back to learning about it. I remember it was in a lit textbook in junior high about the god Janus. Looking forward and backwards, two-faced, not two-faced as in dishonest, duplicitous, but two-faced as in looking forwards and backwards at the same time. And that's what January is named for. And a little delayed to come to me was the fact that I love to tell the story. I've said it way too many places, but it's still new to some folks, about how I credit, a long story short, my 9th grade science teacher, Mrs. Pollard. She's remarried now since her name is different, but she, after a little discussion with some other people in class, shamed me that I wasn't watching Star Trek after school as a freshman in high school. So it struck me that I was coming up on a personal anniversary of that moment, because within a week I was a Trek fan. Within a couple of weeks I was going down and I bought the making of within a few weeks I didn't know what I was. It took a while for the organized world outside to come to me. I found the Starlog #1 issue on vacation. A year and a half later, a few months later, found the making of Star Trek. But before then, it was just, the tech manual, I think, may have been the first thing I actually bought. But what I'm getting to here is, I don't have an exact date, but I think that moment when I watched Star Trek for real and then watched 3 or 4 or 5 in a row, can't tell you the episode. I can remember one time I saw an episode on a weekend and went, that's that show with the guy with the pointed ears. That space show, It was sometime in the spring semester, because people were familiar enough that we were talking and goofing around at the end of class, and it was fine with the teacher at her desk. But I'm going to say that was in the spring of, can I say it? 1974, which means not this coming year, but I'm looking back and realizing I just celebrated my 50th year as a fan, y'all. I had to say the y'all kind of softens the blow. That's that's a lot of cycles of Star Trek. A lot of other interests. I have a life. Thank you very much. Wow, it kind of set me back, got me thinking. The first thing I think about is, well, I'm glad to be here, hale and hearty, for one thing. But the biggest thing is just how many cycles of Trek there have been. And I come by this personality naturally. I was always a natural walk the line. If there were two factions in school, in the theater department, in the journalism department, at work, in the family even, if there were two factions, I tended to be one that could kind of walk the middle line. Not to be pablum and vanilla, but to be the one who could communicate both ways. And hopefully, if it was something really adverse, bring them together. Sometimes it was just being a communicator. Boy, have I been a middleman in my life for different things. And I guess that's partly why communication comes to me. I don't know. It's a long train. I'm not gonna go on the couch here and self-analyze. But communicating and aside from recording ideas, history buff, history nerd, but also making sure that once it's just the bare history, that it doesn't sit there and get dusty on a shelf, that it's articulated and distributed. What's the Smithsonian Institute's motto about for the knowledge and diffusion among men, humans? Diffusion. It's not just to have the stuff, it's to get it out to people. And then the next step, of course, is make it make sense. And brother, there's a lot in the world today that needs to make sense. When you talk about something like Star Trek, that's a good thing. And I just kind of fell into it naturally, I guess. And it's, there's more than one face. There's the interviewing folks and preserving, and then there's the getting in and canon smoothing and dot connecting and all those fun things. And that's the bug that dragged me into kicking and screaming. No, not really. But that's what made me come back time after time. That's what's kept me a fan all these years. All the rest of it too. And of course, in the beginning, you're isolated. And brother, was I isolated. But then eventually found there were 2 or 3 or 4 people, guys at school, that I remember. I guess the technical manual was the first thing. And I remember taking it to school, and Cliff and Mike, I was like, see, I told you, the patches do match the uniform color. I remember saying that. So it was in 4th hour geometry next year. I remember that so clearly. And it wasn't a ha, ha, ha. It was a, ooh, look, see. Because I didn't get it that nobody else hadn't noticed that. And we're talking baby days, guys. But I mean, beyond that, though, I guess the thing that's helpful today and now is that it's amazing that we still have this thing called Star Trek. It's amazing that it's not just, oh, look, it's ticking another year off. Yay for it. It's, of course, what it means to the fan base. Paramount's happy for what it's meant to its bottom line. But of all the people, all the fans that Star Trek has meant so much to them, in some cases, life-saving. In some cases, life-saving or life rebounding. In some cases, it's created bonds among family and friends that might not have been there otherwise. In some cases, it's been lasting memories. People talk about their grandparents, their grandma, their grandpa, their uncle, their aunt, their dads, their moms, that they shared Star Trek with at some point, and they're gone now. Or they had no other way to connect with them except their time to sit down and watch Star Trek. Now, see, my case, I had parents, they weren't sci-fi fans. They were understanding and supportive. Dad, a little gruff, distant. My mom kind of indulged me, but with responsibility. And I had a way older brother and a baby brother. I was the middle kid. And I've told this before about how my mom didn't want to get me indulged so much, but I said, oh, here's the tech manual, Mom. This is what I want for Christmas. And I remember her looking at it, and if you've heard me tell this, apologies, but she looked at it at the time in B. Dalton's in the mall and said, oh, Larry, $4.95 for something that doesn't really exist? I don't know. And I was like, okay. Spring break, I had some money. I was staying with my brother at my eventual college town. I can't even believe this existed at the time, a little dinky bookshop at a little dinky mini mall. I went down and bought my own. Thank you very much. And yes, I've teased my mom with that story for years, teased her over the years. But yeah, we're talking that kind of determination. Had to get a ride down because I didn't have a driver's license yet. Or I had a permit, but not a car anyway. Yeah, those kinds of things. But we know that Star Trek's affected everybody differently. That was my pull. I was kind of like amazed that this whole burning core fandom group, apparently in the early days, the majority core of organized fandom, yeah, the little clubs were popping up and all that, but the driving force, the power, the thing that led to conventions and showing that there was a customer base, right? That the tech manual wound up as 16 weeks as the #1 bestseller on the New York Times bestseller list. That woke people up because now you're talking moolah. And then the convention was a big splash, but you're talking opening eyes. Kids, these things didn't exist then. Geekdom fandom was a thing in the closet, and nobody even kept it in the closet on purpose. That's just where it stayed because no one thought to come out of a closet. So yeah, in the days before the Chambers of Commerce chased the Comic-Cons for the local tourism dollars and the local attention, we've come a long way since then, is my point. And because of different factors, the audience has all these appeals. Obviously, fandom's kept alive. Fan ownership, bang, started with Star Trek. First case of a show brought back to life, a protest campaign. You know, the Monkees fans didn't get the Monkees back on TV, but Star Trek did. And we even did a Trek Files and a memo about when they realized that the Save Star Trek campaign was bigger than the Bring Back the Monkees campaign. Same network, NBC, and they were like, oh, we've got more letters in from Star Trek than we even had of the Monkees. Well, who was in every teeny bopper magazine? The Monkees, not Star Trek. Except that was about the time you did start to see Leonard Nimoy popping up, and even Walter, and yeah, right. That's been that. And then, of course, over the years, well, the geeks won. Nobody's even in the closet anymore about their fandom. And of course, everybody else took Star Trek's ball and ran with it, so that when Star Trek was resting, it blew up even bigger. And now Star Trek's like, hey guys, we kind of invented all this. We kind of started media cons. We broke away from the traditional, staid, stately, 500-person lit cons. 5,000 Worldcon people if you were lucky, and that was the apex. More like 2,000 or 3,000 some years. Couldn't believe the scale when I realized what it was. And then that begat, at first, that original cast, and for sure the writers and backstage crew didn't see a penny of things, but that cast were whipsawed. They were they hit out of nowhere. Hit by a bus in the 70s because they were so stereotyped they couldn't get other work aside from Nimoy and Shatner. And it affected them as well. They had to struggle even. Every cast since then has been a little wary, but more and more and more, it's amazing. It's a godsend because Star Trek is a franchise and we live in a media world that has all this. But sometimes it's good to bring that perspective in. And I guess that's, if there's anything these days, I talk about the pendulum swinging all the time in Star Trek. Well, I guess I missed experiencing I was there. I wasn't breathing that air. I'm really a second generation fan. I wasn't a NBC prime timer, right? Or even a zine world. I didn't buy zines and get into fanfic and all that. I was kind of amazed. I read about those women, mainly women, in Interstats pages, the letters, and me and my 8 other people talking about background and continuity. But they were there. I'd write letters to them. And then I answered letters for the Well Committee. The Well Committee was Star Trek internet before there was an internet. It was stamps and paper internet. I was a volunteer. First just answered letters, and then I was the library computer volunteer, which meant answered background questions. That was like 10 years. And then the Well Committee went the way of everything that was pre-internet. It served its purpose. Great and glorious. The relics exist. It needs to be preserved and archived, and I think there's things afoot for that. I found my folder of the 8 or so 10 years of questions that I answered because I kept carbon copies. I'm going to dive into those sometime and see if there's anything fun to make out of them. I look back at the 50 years as a fan and see obviously the corporate swings, the fandom swings, the fallow times, and the high points, and then the crazy times. Thank you, social media, for bonds, and then also to amplify, the loud 10% is what I called them in the 80s that were yelling about Spock dying, and they're not going to go see Wrath of Khan because they're pissed that Spock is dying. And it's quantified in a marketer's real survey. But it's fun to share all that. It's fun to bring that perspective to everybody, the double-edged sword, and stop me if you're a corporate vice president or bean counter at Paramount. The double-edged sword is you've got these people that love a thing so much, they're going to vote with their feet and vote with their dollars. At the same time, they all feel like they own it because you go back to the roots of things and it wouldn't be here without them. But that also means that they love it so much. If they're if they're disappointed, but the spectrum all the way to hurt, leading to anger with what you've done with their baby in your care, the wrath of fans. And when it gets to an extreme, and something, it's still got to live with the bounds of civility. But we see what happens. Now, I'm not even talking about when fear and anger get commercialized, and we have the whole paid bot and troll thing amplified with the help of social media. Didn't exist before Twitter and Facebook, but there it is now. I'd like to think we're starting to be savvier about all of that overall, and we can put the Star Trek niche of all of that in its place as we look at the whole thing. And, since I've been doing Trekland Tuesdays Live 2017, we've kind of had the aha awareness. This has come roaring up. We've become aware. We're getting a wrangle. Kindergartners, I hope, are learning about algorithms now in social media just to protect themselves and their sanity, their well-being. But I didn't mean to turn this into what can you say? We all kind of are aware of this. We all come into Star Trek and fandom at different times. Thank God we went into virtual here just in the last half dozen years or so, and it got us through the pandemic. But if there's one thing, I live for details. I live for preserving creatives' intentions and roads not taken, and the drafts, or even the unseen finals that didn't make it to camera, because people are hungry for the stuff, right? Not just your cosplay nerd, not just your shipbuilder or your prop maker. The gamer needs all that. Everybody, especially the tabletop, the role-play gamer. Paper and dice gaming, we said before tabletop was a term. That's my term anyway. Yeah, that was always a thing. And then realizing that it wasn't just enough to get it, but to preserve it and then get it out there. And these tools pretty much today are even better than what we did on paper or with cassette tape back in the day. So it's weird. I thought, well, I have to say something profound at this moment in time. And I don't know. It's just the only thing profound I would say is, for the most part, it's been a blessing to see so much. I can't say firsthand, because there's a lot I didn't see firsthand. Some things I had to realize 3 or 5 or 10 years later. And the things like knowing that even though the numbers for DS9 and Voyager are tanking because it's split audience and it's not a unified thing and it's on dinky stations and they get thrown late at night, and even UPN is a dinky network, and all of that, knowing in your heart that someday the Trekkie kids watching Janeway are going to be impacted by that. It's a good thing. It was a good PR thing and a good heartfelt Trek thing to do. The first black captain, but then to see the effect, because the paradigm changed. It wasn't everybody watching their cassette tapes, their videotapes, or their DVDs. It was Netflix and the streaming, with all you can say about that. And the streaming power of unlocking that for so many people all at once. The streaming revolution is what brought DS9 and eventually even Voyager their great impact, and redeemed Enterprise in a lot of ways for what the original fifth network was going to be with UPN. what the original dramatic syndication package was beyond just game shows and talk shows and soap operas for syndication. Every time there's a new prototype in media, Star Trek has been there. And streaming, CBS All Access was really ahead of the other. Yes, it was clunky in the beginning. Yes, people didn't want to play for Star Trek. But that was the beginnings. Before there was Peacock and ABC Disney Plus and all of that, there was CBS All Access because they had Star Trek, and that's what they led with. And we hate the 10-episode seasons, but then again, 10-episode seasons are what allowed a buffet to come along and not just be invested in the late 24th century, as beloved now as that is, because we got so much of it, of the Picard, Sisko, Janeway era. And it's evolving now. And in 10 or 20, excuse me, guys, I'm really not cracked up. I'm just, or choked up. But, you know, we're going to do nothing but add to the decades. I hope that even the money boys have learned their lesson not to have no Star Trek for 12 years again. Small screen Star Trek. Because as we've seen once again, the movie world is so wacky doodle. These one-off big splash effect budget things are so dependent on the ebbs and flows of politics and administration and all of that. There's nothing mechanical. There's nothing mechanical. Maybe the only thing more that is quasi-mechanical is the James Bond franchise. And even now, right now, they're kind of in a fluffle to get the next one going. Star Wars has sure come and gone and floundered at times. And much less the mighty Marvel, oh ho ho, give them 10 years at the top and now watch them. You know, it happens. It happens. So the small screen is Star Trek's home, its birthplace, and its last best destiny. So looky here. We're all in this together now. It doesn't take decades of hindsight to realize what's going on here now. So yeah, of course we want to watch the shows. We want to soak up the acting and the writing, hopefully, and the details of the universe and all of that. But it doesn't take much to step back and have the meta of what's going on year to year and all that. And you know what? Those years do fly by. Am I right? Just stacking up your DVDs or your Blu-rays now. Just watching those lines pile up on your queues on Paramount Plus. Watching people come back, watching the power and the fun of legacy characters come from the old to the new, and enjoying our creatives, both sides of the camera, as long as we've got them, and treasuring that. And if I may be selfish, squeezing as much as we can out of them to have for the record. And the scary thing is, a lot of them over the years, more and more, get that. I mean, they do in their own lives, but most of them working on the shows know that. And as much as the actors have made peace, because now getting into a Star Trek is amazing. It's cool. I mean, yes, crassly, in an insecure industry like acting, gang, saying, oh, it's a paycheck of some degree, I can do cons my entire life. That's not a shabby, shameful thing to say. That's a pretty smart, savvy thing to say. And in a world that's so, you know, between media changing and formats changing and unions and contracts and management, all the weirdness and work leaving LA to go to other places, will it ever come back? In the uncertainties of an industry like that, anything that you've got in your corner is great. The thing is, people are excited to have their guest spot. People who work all the time, they're working actors, they're thrilled to have a Star Trek in there. And even if they're not a fan, here's the thing that's different. People know not just the value, like the money value, monetary value of Star Trek as a franchise, but they know that Star Trek is a force for good. Every little local club, every fan con, every major convention has charity events. I mean, you know, and that's all sci-fi, but Star Trek was one of the pioneers in making sure that was part of it. And it's in the DNA of Paramount, of Star. It's not the DNA of Paramount. It's a part of that, but it's the DNA of Star Trek. And that is why, yes, on top of the association for their own well-being, people are thrilled to be part of Star Trek. So many actors will say it's so good, especially if they do villains. I mean, it started with D being a Western villain. It starts with so many saying, you know what, I'm under makeup, sure, but there's so many where I'm the bad guy and I do this and that. But it's such a thrill, even if I'm playing a bad guy on Star Trek, but I get to touch Star Trek. I get to be in that glow of something that overall is a force for good. And so many times, strong actors who are amazing playing villains and adversaries get countercast. You know, it's like Bill Tice flipping the material in the 60s and showing the backside. And that's the side he used for his alien, tailored suits and things. No, it's those actors that get a chance to play a good guy and show the world. And more so than the actors, it's also directors, writers, all the creatives who spend their lives, and guest stars who spend their lives working, going from show to show to show to show. And they either know up front or they don't, but they know. And if they don't, they learn before retirement. Maybe hopefully after 10, 20, 30 years of their work for Trek, whatever it was and however long it was, they know the one thing they're going to get asked about more than any other. Now, unless they did double duty on Star Wars, unless they did double duty on one of maybe 5 other things out there, franchises, long-running series. No, they know that if they worked on 15 different shows, the one that people are going to ask them about at 50 and 60 and 70 and 80 is Star Trek. And that's a glow. That's a glow for them too. Even if they don't feel like they contributed anything, just to know that they've got that association. Of course, a lot of them in art, visual effects, props, costumes, music, all the majors like that, to know that they've added something to canon and to the universe is just cool beans. So that's a long time perspective that's cool to see. And it's cool to see people get that long time perspective. Otherwise, it's just another, having a perspective like that is just a tool in the toolbox of what I try to do right now. And you know what? There's so many great folks out there that there's a few that are, I'm not claiming this alone. There's lots of folks that have a long-term perspective that way. I'm thinking of everybody from, my friends, Mr. Okuda and Mr. Sternbach and Mr. Doctorman and maybe Mr. Ullman by now. So many long-timers, both on and off the payroll of the shows, and a lot of who aren't with us any longer. Anyway, I just wanted to mark that. It's not like it's a survival. It's just and to say that I felt like I should have something more profound to say, and I don't. And I'm going to own that. And maybe as I went through that litany, that laundry list of perspectives, nothing hugely major, nothing for, tombstone worthy, nothing title of your memoirs worthy. And no, I'm not planning on either one anytime soon. As always, I'm just happy when I've saved one little thing for posterity, or I've maybe sparked even 1 or 2 new ideas or perspectives in everybody out there. And I hope it's reciprocal. I'm always looking for it to be reciprocal. I always look to see what I can pick up new and stay fresh. God forbid, woe betide, Kalis be damned if we all stagnate and we stick with our blinders on and we just look at the world, much less Star Trek, the way we did, name a decade, when we first came in, because that ain't the way it is today. Remember, compare and contrast is a good thing, but don't be fooled into thinking the world is the same. And sometimes we can't help but be tricked into that. To ask anybody that watched DS9 in the 90s. Yeah. Okay, part 2 today. I promised this look ahead, the other side of Janus. This was great. This was the New Year's Eve email, ostensibly to say, hey guys, 2 more days to get in on the Portal 47 self-give your gifted Santa leave you off his Trek list. And a couple of people bid on that. But I also always have something to give in those, either a link or a photo, or the polls are fun. And it gives me something to talk about on the next Tuesday. Well, this was earlier because it's been out a week. So yeah, I had 4% return on this, which was kind of cool. This is the highest returned poll in ages, I guess, because it had that week to gestate. And I could keep poking back on it with Trigger. So again, I ask everyone on my email list, and you should be on it if you're not, LarryNemecek.com. I do not overspam people. I don't send enough. But the question was, what are you most looking forward to in 2025 in your Trek? And the nature of the MailChimp that I use, polls are, I have to give answers. There's no place for write-in candidates. So here we go. I had 10 options. I had some specifics, and a couple I tried to make use of the fact that you couldn't combine. We couldn't say like number 1 and number 4, number 6. So I generically went that way. But basically said, and this time around, because we had a 4% return, which is that's the kind of the minimum you need. Everything drew at least 1 vote. So here you go. And you can expect all the things, the specific projects, and then also just some different things you can do as a fan. You know what? I'm not expecting anything on screen. I'm just going to enjoy toys and merch, or I'm just looking forward to my personal fandom friends, whatever the world gives us officially, yada, yada. So I had 10 of those and a couple that were combinings. I can't pick just one. And then, all of these, I can't pick not just one. So 1.6% tied said the biggest thing they're looking forward to in 2025, 1.6% said new toys and merch. Okay, not too impressive what's coming on the screen, I guess. And 1.6% said they're looking forward to hearing more about the Origins movie. Yeah. 1.6%. I've done a show about it just in the last month or so. It's going to ramp up. It's going to be in our face. Just to say, I'm hoping somebody with a brain has hacked out a corner of the Star Trek universe. It's not only not fleshed out at all, but that realizes that's a safe place to be for a crew, designers, a team that are not used to TV style continuity. To get in and monkey around, bull in a china shop here. I'm hoping it's something safe and there's enough buffer room that we can retcon our way out of that. Of course, if we're all going to live in a multiverse now with a door right there all bright and shiny, maybe it won't make any difference anyway. But to keep your sanity for a little bit longer, there you go. But that was the lowest getting. Next up from that, though, was 3.1%. And this was people who are the most they're doing this year. They're mostly looking forward to word about the Kelvin 4 film. So there you go. And this is my audience, and this is people motivated to return a poll. That's right there. That's digital. You click one thing. So between the two there's almost 5% say they're looking forward to the two new movies. There you go. Not unexpected, I should say, and certainly no surprise to most of y'all. But after that, tied up next is 6.3% who chose, which is a little disappointing, future word on Prodigy Season 3. Now, I know a lot of people are curious about it. It just may not be people's number 1, which I think you'll see. And maybe it's combined. But I, again, didn't have any way to be nuanced about that. But for 6% of my list anyway, Prodigy Season 3 was the big thing they're looking forward to. And then next we had another tie, climbing the ladder here. So at 9.4%, came the main thing they're looking forward to. Main thing is the future of Lower Decks. More word about that. And the very low key, just enjoying fandom and cons and meeting other fans and their local club and, just just laid back fandom, which you can depend on not to go away. Doesn't depend on anybody else but you and your buds. That's smart. It's good. Maybe the best mental health tactic in here. Now we jump up to 12.5% was the next faction, and that's the ones that said they're looking the most forward to the Section 31 movie. Well, we've only got about 2 weeks here, and we'll know all about that. But there you go. 12.5. More people said they're most looking forward to the Section 31 movie than a future of Prodigy or future of Lower Decks, which was interesting. But again, not taking away a lot of people may be in the combo world. I'll show you. Then we had it 14% said, no, all of these. So take a fraction in that. Do an overlay for all these other things. 15.1% said, 15.6% said, well, not just one, but more than one. So I let people say it's either the one specific or everything. I let people say, well, 2 or 3 of these. I do not care about the new movies, or I don't care about Section 31. Without getting into detail, I let that handle that. And there you go. That was 15% said that. But are you keeping score at home? Are you keeping score at home? The overwhelming here of the fraction was 26.6% said the biggest thing they're looking forward to is what's most known, Strange New Worlds, Season 3. Now, I just realized that I did not include word on Starfleet Academy. I should have. I don't know how many it would have attracted in lieu of the thing right here in front of you that you know is coming and you know of. Strange New. The thing you know is coming and you're not sure about it, the Section 31. I mean, that's a spectrum. Starfleet Academy, I have no idea where that falls in between. People may be less wary of a series than a movie. They may be even less wary about movies made by people still to be announced about their Trek cred. So we'll see. But there you go. Number one answer, Strange New Worlds of a number one focus. But number 2 and number 3 were multi-focused. So that lessens the blow. People specifically about looking forward to any other aspect, much less just being a general fan and not tying all your eggs to one basket. It's in there too. There you go. One more thing that I realized about opening this year, 2025, and another edition of another year for the Trek Files. Well, and Trekland Tuesdays Live. What show is this? Is something that I realized when I was checking out things here, bumping around while we were working on the wall over there. Hopefully here within the next end of the month, things will be up and perfect in the new studio here after a year of squeezing it in with everything else. Found something I hadn't unpacked yet that I meant to have here on the set that I did at the old set. It's a little enigmatic here. It's an unboxing of a different sort, but all I wanted to do was share it with you all because I'm very proud. And this is only a couple years old. The bubble wrap here, some of you may remember it, some of you may not have been aware, but this is, for the last 10 or 15 years, the Future Society of Central Oklahoma, which is the corporate nonprofit home of SoonerCon back home in Oklahoma City, the con I helped start when it was a club production of Star OKC, which used to be part of Starbase, Star Trek Association for Revival, and its roots, the old original chaptered Star Trek fan club from the 70s. And this was the award I was indoctrinated. I was inducted into the Oklahoma Speculative Fiction Hall of Fame, which has about 10 or 12 other members so far, including science fiction author C.J. Sherry, Count Gregor, the Oklahoma City late night horror film host of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and only just recently retired. I was very proud of this. It was delayed a year by the pandemic, but it's had a place of honor here in the set, and I had never unpacked it. So I don't know. If you talk about 50 years, that was a highlight. I kind of got to me. as Will Rogers said, something to the effect of, when the folks back home pay you homage, that's kind of the biggest honor of all, because they know all about you and like you anyway. To that effect. I'm not being a good docent. I'm not quoting Will exactly. But that's it. I don't know. I hopefully a little education here, just to know what my mail list people induced to actually reply to the poll were thinking there, self-motivated. There you go, for what it's worth. So if you're leaving me now on YouTube, don't forget to leave a comment below, would you please, though? And I'm going to hang on here with the live folks. But as we leave you this week, just please, 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 please enjoy your 2025. Just try to carry where you've been with you as you face what's going to be a crazy world in Trek. A big shift here with gaps. We're not fallow. We've got more Trek on the horizon. We've got all kinds of interesting twists and turns. If there's going to be a live sitcom of Star Trek, I trust no one better than Tawny Newsome to get it to us. That's on the horizon too. So it's going to be interesting times, interesting year coming. Whatever's doing, if I see you on the convention trail, starting in real life in just a couple of weeks at Star Trek San Francisco, the Creation Regional Con that's back for a second try. And then, of course, Trek Vegas and SoonerCon and San Diego Comic-Con and more to come. And in just another month and a half at Star Trek The Cruise Voyage 8. I'm so thrilled to be a guest there. So big year here, and some other surprises. You want to be listening to the show next week. Something fun is happening with the Trek Files. The Trek Files will be back next week. Yes, back for season 13. You want to catch it with our home at thetrekfiles.com, which is a Memory Alpha page with all the links. It's there. And yeah, it's time. Once these winds die down and the snow thaws, or maybe not, in LA, it'll be perfect. That's the time to come take a SoCal. Real Star Trek locations, planned Trek on a Trekland Trek. That's it. Best of all, though, are these folks. This is the new edition. I need some new color ink. New folks for Patreon. So I want to thank all of my Patreon, which we just call the TTL Club, the Trekland Tuesdays Live Club. Thank you so much. And it's been growing, you can tell. Thanks to Chuck A., James Kerwin, Diana Hopkins, Halbjörn Gunn Johnson, Lawrence Todd, Justin Weir is newly jumped aboard. Thank you, Justin. Mitch Keith, another one of our recents. Andrew Jasimski, Josh Patton, Pranakasha Productions, Chris Jiggins, Keith Rombach, and Comedy Forecast. And then our live wires. Jesse just jumped down there. Crusher Convo. Greg Wickstrom, Robert McLean, Byron Bailey, J.R. Poole, Gary Williams, James Durovich, Dave Gregory, Dan Leckie, and Casey Shafsky. Want to thank all of them so much. It's still a simple Patreon of $5 and $10 a month for the shout outs. $10. I know. I owe you an update on your interviews from the early years of Portal 47. Backstage creative interviews, of course. What else would it be in Portal 47? No, that's all that. But it's Larry Nemecek on Twitter and Blue Sky. And, of course, YouTube. Like and subscribe right now. Hey, it's Larry Nemecek's Trekland on Facebook and Instagram especially. Portal47.net. You can read all about Portal 47 there. That's going to do it, gang. Again, like and subscribe. Leave a comment here on YouTube if you're still watching there. And it's winter. It's the buggy season. So please, please stay healthy. Do all the things. And stay woke. And I mean by that, stay awake. The fake news is out there. Please check the sources. You can't trust what's on social. The accounts I'm talking about, the bots and trolls, before you get enraged, check the profile and see if they have more than 7 followers and they've been on that platform longer than, 2 months. Yeah. Just, basically, Trek well, everybody.